They said a help is meant to ease the burden. But in every house she worked, she brought weight no broom could sweep away. She brought terror. Confusion followed her footsteps. Quarrels grew where she cooked. And love died quietly in the corners she cleaned. She didn't shout. She didn't strike. She simply smiled, and the home began to rot. 3 marriages a month, that was her quota. They said she was just a maid. But she was a mission. And your home might be next. The Okeke family had just moved into a new apartment in Nduka Estate, a quiet neighborhood where the streets were lined with low buildings and the air always seemed to hold secrets. They were excited to begin life here. For Mr. Okeke, it was the start of a new chapter, a better job in the city meant brighter prospects for his family. For his wife, Chioma, it meant fresh hope, a safer place for their children to grow. But excitement often hides exhaustion. Taking the children to school each morning, rushing back to cook, cleaning the apartment, and still trying to keep up with her online work quickly became too much for Mrs. Okeke. The little flat was tidy when they first arrived, but within weeks, laundry piled in corners, the sink overflowed with plates, and the children's homework lay scattered across the living room table. Chioma tried. Oh, she tried. But each night she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan, her body ached with the weight of it all. And so one evening, as the children played in their room, she sighed and said to her husband, "Obina, we need help. A maid, someone to take the pressure off. I cannot do everything alone." Mr. Okeke, loosening his tie, nodded wearily. "Tomorrow, I will contact the agency. Just hold on one more day." But tomorrow came that very night. Because before the moon rose high, there was a knock at the door. 3 soft knocks. Then silence. When Mr. Okeke opened it, a young woman stood there. She was slim, straight-bodied, no more than 21. Her deep brown skin seemed to drink in the light. Sharp cheekbones cast shadows across her face, and her piercing almond eyes lingered too long. Her hair was short and tightly coiled, hidden beneath a dull black scarf. She wore a faded wrapper that hung loosely on her frame and slippers that made no sound. And though she smiled, her presence was colder than the night air. "Good evening, sir." "Good evening, Ma," she said softly. "My name is Ngozi. I can sweep, clean, and take care of your home. I heard you are looking for a maid." The Okekes froze. They had told no one. Not the neighbors. Not their relatives. Not even their closest friends. So how did she know? Ngozi lowered her eyes respectfully and added, "Sir, Ma, you can pay me any amount you wish. I do not need much. Just give me shelter in your home, and I will serve you with all my strength." Her words fell like honey into Chioma's ears. Mr. Okeke frowned, hesitating. He knew nothing in life came free. But Chioma's mind was already racing. This was exactly what she needed. They had planned to contact an agency the next morning, an agency that would demand high fees for a maid who might only come 2 or 3 times a week. But this was a golden opportunity. Chioma's face softened into a smile. "Ngozi, welcome. You will stay with us." Without hesitation, she took the girl's small bag and led her inside. She showed her the spare room at the back of the apartment, a modest space with a narrow bed and a window that looked out to the courtyard. "This will be yours," she said. "Tomorrow morning, you'll start with the sweeping, mopping, and washing of plates. After that, I will show you how I like the laundry done." Ngozi bowed slightly. "Yes, Ma. I will not disappoint you." That very night, she tied her scarf tighter and began to sweep the living room floor, humming a tune that none of them recognized. A low, ancient melody, strange and unsettling, yet almost sweet. From their room, the Okeke children peeped out, watching her slender figure move silently across the floor. "Mommy, who is that woman?" the youngest asked in a whisper. "She is our new helper," Chioma replied, her voice tired but hopeful. "Now go to bed." And as the children returned to their room, Mrs. Okeke sat back with relief for the first time in weeks. But Mr. Okeke, he could not shake off the unease. There was something in Ngozi's eyes, something in the way she had arrived unannounced, as though she had been waiting for them all along. Still, he said nothing. And that silence was the beginning of everything. On the second evening, Ngozi prepared dinner. She stirred the pot gently, her face calm. When she was sure no one was watching, she leaned forward and parted her lips. A thick, red substance, like blood, yet heavier, darker, flowed silently from her mouth into the food. She stirred it in quickly, humming that same haunting tune. The family ate together. At first, all was quiet. Then Mr. Okeke slammed his fork down suddenly. "Chioma, why do you always make me feel like a failure?" Chioma's eyes widened. "What? Where did that come from? You think I don't see the way you look down on me? Always busy with your online work, acting like I don't provide for this family." Chioma's voice rose in defense, sharp and trembling. Soon, their words cut into each other like knives. The children froze at the table, watching their parents unravel. Ngozi sat in the corner, hands folded, her head bowed politely. And when the fight reached its peak, she lifted her face just slightly, and smiled. By the seventh day, the Okekes were finished. Bags were packed. Words of reconciliation were impossible. Papers were signed. A family that had just moved in, divorced in less than a week. The neighbors gossiped endlessly. A curse, perhaps. Or maybe the man was unfaithful. No, the wife, she was too proud. But none suspected the maid. That night, Ngozi walked silently into the forest. Her slippers brushed over dry leaves as though the earth itself parted for her. Deep in the woods, a clearing glowed faintly with fire. There, the coven gathered, young women like Ngozi, their faces painted in ash and blood, scarves tied tightly, wrappers dragging across the ground. They knelt in a circle, heads bowed, while the leader stood tall at the center. She was a towering woman draped in red cloth, her skin marked with scar-like symbols that seemed to move under the firelight. Her voice was sharp, like iron striking stone. 3 marriages a month, she thundered, that is your covenant. To fail is death. The girls murmured in fear. The leader's eyes darted to one trembling girl at the edge of the circle. Her scarf was loose, her hands shaking. "Amaka," the leader said slowly, her voice cold. "Where is your third family?" Amaka stammered, her lips trembling. "A mother. I only destroyed 2 this month. The third, they were strong, their love." A hiss of disapproval rippled through the coven. The leader's eyes blazed. "Strong? You dare give excuses? Love is nothing. Love is meat. And you have failed to feed us." She raised her hand. 2 women seized Amaka by the arms. She screamed, begging, "Please. Please, give me one more chance." But the leader's voice cut her begging short. "There are no second chances in this work." Her hand sliced the air. The woman dragged Amaka to the center, forcing her to her knees. A curved blade gleamed in the firelight. Ngozi did not flinch. She watched, her piercing eyes steady, as Amaka's scream tore through the night, then was silenced. Blood soaked the earth, feeding the fire, making it roar higher. The women hissed in unison, rocking back and forth in rhythm. The leader turned, her eyes settling on Ngozi. "And you, Ngozi, your report." Ngozi stepped forward, her face calm, her voice steady. "Mother, the Okeke family was my third. They divorced in less than a week. My quota is complete." The leader's grim face softened into a smile. She stretched out her hand and lifted Ngozi's chin. "You have never failed. You remain faithful. Once you finish next month's work, you will rise to stand beside me as my assistant leader." The Coven hissed in approval, their voices like snakes slithering over stone. Ngozi bowed deeply, her dull black scarf slipping slightly, revealing faint scars etched across her scalp. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. 3 families had fallen. The blood had been fed. The month's work was done. And as the fire hissed and crackled, Ngozi's eyes gleamed with cold hunger. The new month had begun. And 3 more homes were waiting for her. In Rosefield Heights, a gated community where the streets gleamed with wealth, the Admie family stood as a picture of perfection. Chuka Admie was a successful businessman, admired for his sharp mind and charm. His wife, Ifeoma, was graceful and intelligent, the kind of woman who made every gathering brighter. Together, they had 1 daughter, little Muna, a lively 6-year-old who adored both her parents. Neighbors whispered, "The Admies are the family everyone wishes to be." But even in perfect homes, cracks can form. Their maid of 3 years had suddenly resigned without warning. Ifeoma was thrown into a storm of chores, school runs, cooking, laundry, all while managing her own work. She was exhausted, desperate for help. That very week, when her frustration had reached its peak, a knock came at the door. Ngozi stood there. Slim, straight-bodied, with deep brown skin and piercing almond eyes. A faded wrapper clung to her frame, her dull black scarf tied tight over her short coiled hair. She moved with a quietness that felt unnatural. "Good afternoon, Ma," she said softly, her voice steady. "I heard you are in need of a maid. My name is Ngozi. I can sweep, cook, and care for the home. Pay me whatever you wish, just give me shelter." Ifeoma's heart skipped. She had spoken of their need for a new maid only to her husband and a close friend. Yet here stood this girl, as if summoned by her very thoughts. Still, desperation clouded suspicion. Ifeoma welcomed her in immediately, relieved that her burden might finally ease. Ngozi's room was arranged, her duties explained. By evening, she was already working, sweeping silently, humming that strange, unsettling tune under her breath. That night, Ngozi prepared dinner. She leaned over the simmering pot, lips parting. From her mouth, a dark, blood-like substance oozed into the food. She stirred it in, her humming deepening. The Admie sat at the table, Muna giggling as her parents shared stories of their day. But as soon as they ate, warmth drained from the room. Chuka's brow furrowed. "Ifeoma, why must you always question my decisions? Do you think I don't know what I'm doing?" Ifeoma blinked. "What are you saying? I wasn't questioning you. You do it all the time. Always acting like you're smarter, like I can't lead this family." Muna's laughter died instantly. Silence fell, broken only by the rising edge of her parents' voices. Ngozi, seated quietly in the corner, folded her hands and smiled. It had begun. Within 3 days, the Admie home, the family once envied by all, would be a battlefield. Another scene occurred with raised voices at night. Neighbors dismissed it as ordinary quarrels between husband and wife. But soon, the Admie home was no longer the picture of calm evenings and laughter, it had become a furnace of anger. Chuka began slamming doors after every conversation. Ifeoma snapped at him over the smallest things. Their once tender words turned to venom. "Nobody respects me in this house," Chuka shouted one evening, veins bulging in his neck. "Respect? How can I respect a man who acts like a stranger to me?" Ifeoma shot back, her eyes wet with fury. Plates shattered against the walls. Chairs overturned. Little Muna hid behind the curtains, clutching her doll, trembling at the voices of the parents she once adored. The neighbors heard it all. They whispered among themselves, shocked. Is this not the same Admie we all admired? God forbid. What could be happening inside that house? But none dared interfere. Then came the day no one would ever forget. It was a Sunday evening, quiet in Rosefield Heights. From the Admie home came a sudden eruption, screams, banging, the sound of furniture breaking. Neighbors rushed out, gathering at the gates. Inside, Chuka's eyes were bloodshot, his chest heaving. Ifeoma stood before him, trembling but unyielding. You will not destroy me, Chuka. If you want to be a man with sense. That last word snapped something deep inside him. With a roar, Chuka lunged. His hands clamped around her throat. Leave me. Leave, Ifeoma's voice cracked as she clawed at his grip. Muna wailed, screaming, Daddy stop. Daddy stop. But the madness had consumed him. He pressed harder, until her body went limp in his arms. Silence. When the neighbors finally forced the door open, horror froze them in place. Ifeoma lay lifeless on the tiled floor, Chuka kneeling beside her, his hands still trembling. Muna sobbed uncontrollably, clinging to her mother's wrapper. The police came swiftly. They dragged Chuka away as he shouted, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. Child services carried Muna, her cries piercing the night. The Admie home, once the pride of the estate, was now sealed with yellow police tape. And in the shadows, Ngozi watched, her lips curling into that cold, familiar smile. Again, in less than 7 days, another family was shattered beyond repair. The moon was heavy that night, swollen with silence. In the clearing, the coven gathered. Shadows knelt around the black fire, their scarves pulled low, their lips murmuring dark incantations. Ngozi stepped into the circle. Her faded wrapper trailed dust, her almond eyes glittering with triumph. She bowed slightly before the coven mother. The first home for this month is finished, she said calmly. The Admies are no more. The wife lies cold in death, the husband rots in prison, and their only child is gone to strangers. The maidens hissed in unison, voices sharp with awe and fear. The coven mother's lips curved into a crooked smile. She lifted her staff, and the black flames leapt high, casting long, trembling shadows. Well done, Ngozi. You never stumble at the start of the race. One down. Her voice hardened, echoing through the night. But you know our law. 3 families every month. Not 1, not 2, 3. Fail, and your blood will replace theirs. At once, the girls bowed low. The air grew colder. The coven mother's gaze swept the circle, then returned to Ngozi. 2 more remain. Break them before the month ends, and your seat as assistant leader will be ready. Ngozi's heart quickened with pride. She lowered her head, hiding the cold smile tugging her lips. Yes, mother. I will not fail. 2 more homes will crumble before me. The coven mother tapped her staff against the earth. The fire hissed, as if sealing the command. Ngozi rose and walked out into the night, her dull black scarf fluttering in the wind. Her footsteps were soft, but her resolve was sharp. The Admies were only the beginning. 2 more families. 2 more broken homes. And then, her promotion is sealed. The Oladil family lived in a modest 2-bedroom flat on Maple Crescent. They were not rich, but neither could they be called poor. What they lacked in luxury, they made up for in love and faith. For 6 months, Funmileo's mother had stayed with them, helping with the new baby, cooking, cleaning, and guiding the older 2 children. But now, Mama's time of omagwo had come to an end. Her small bag was packed, her heart heavy as she prepared to return home. Before leaving, she gathered her daughter and son-in-law into the sitting room. The baby slept soundly in the cot beside them, while the two older children, ages 10 and 7, leaned against their father. "My children," Mama said, her voice strong despite the tears in her eyes, "my work here is finished. But never forget what I am about to tell you. A family without prayer is like a house without a roof. Rain and wind will scatter it. Keep your prayer altar alive. That is your shield." Fan Malayo's eyes grew wet. "Yes, Mama. Thank you." Mr. Oladil bowed his head in respect. "We are grateful, Mama. You've been our strength these months." After escorting her to the bus stop, they returned to the flat. The silence was immediate. The walls seemed to know that Mama had gone, and the air grew heavy with responsibility. Fan Malayo sighed, rubbing her tired eyes. "With the baby, the children, and work, how will I manage now? I thought Mama would stay longer." Her husband squeezed her hand gently. "We'll manage. Maybe it's time to get a maid. Just someone to ease the load." She frowned. "But agencies are expensive. And those girls they send usually come only 2 or 3 times a week." "Don't worry," he replied. "God will make a way." That evening, just after they finished family devotion, a knock came at the door. Knock. Knock. Mr. Oladil opened it. A young woman stood there. Slim, straight-bodied, her faded wrapper dusted from the road. Her cheekbones were sharp, her almond eyes piercing, her deep brown skin glowing faintly in the lantern light. A dull black scarf held down her short coiled hair, and her worn slippers pressed silently against the mat. "Good evening, sir," she said softly, her lips curving into a faint smile. "My name is Ngozi. I heard you are looking for a maid. I can sweep, cook, clean, care for the children. Pay me whatever you wish, or nothing at all. All I ask is a place to stay." Fan Malayo shifted uneasily, her baby stirring in her arms. "You want to work here?" Ngozi lowered her head slightly. "Yes, Ma. I won't trouble you. Only give me shelter, and I will serve you well." The couple exchanged glances. After Mama's departure, it felt almost too perfect, an answer to their prayer before the day even ended. Fan Malayo's unease pricked again, but the thought of carrying the burden alone pressed her into a quick decision. She stepped aside. "Come in. You can stay." Ngozi bowed low and entered the Oladil home. Her wrapper whispered against the floor as she moved, her almond eyes glimmering faintly in the light. The Oladilis believed they had welcomed help. But what had walked through their door was no ordinary maid. That night, Fumalayo had a dream. She saw herself standing over a pot of food. A shadowy hand reached in to stir, and a voice thundered. "Guard the pot. Always cook for your family." She awoke trembling, beads of sweat on her forehead. The message was clear, though she could not fully understand it. By morning, Ngozi had already started cleaning. She moved with unusual speed, sweeping and scrubbing with a zeal that almost seemed rehearsed. When Fumalayo entered the kitchen, she found Ngozi tying an apron, ready to start cooking. "You don't need to bother with that," Fumalayo said firmly. "I will cook for my family." Ngozi paused, turning slowly. "But Ma, I can cook. You are busy. Let me help." Fumalayo shook her head. "No. This is my duty. You will focus on cleaning and other chores." Ngozi's smile flickered. Her eyes narrowed for just a second, but she quickly masked it. "As you wish, Ma." Days turned into a week. Morning and evening, the family gathered in prayer, their voices rising with faith. Each time, Ngozi knelt among them, silent, her jaw tight. The words of their prayers stung her ears, the fire of their hymns unsettled her spirit. It was already 1 week, and for the first time, she had not broken her home in 7 days. At night, she tossed in her sleep, hearing the Coven mother's voice hissing in her skull. Do not fail, Ngozi. 2 more homes before the moon dies, or your blood will flow. Ngozi clenched her fists. She knew she had to act fast. One fateful afternoon, while Fumaleo was cooking, her phone rang. She stepped out of the kitchen to take the call. Ngozi seized her chance. She glided into the kitchen, opened the simmering pot, and parted her mouth. A thick, blackish-red substance dripped like blood, spilling into the stew. The air filled with a foul stench. But before she could finish, Fumaleo suddenly re-entered. Jesus! Fumaleo screamed as she dropped her phone. Her voice trembled but carried fire. Blood of Jesus, cover my family, she shouted, lifting her hands in prayer. Ngozi froze, she was caught right in the act of the ritual. In less than a heartbeat, Ngozi turned into a black bat, its wings thrashing wildly, filling the kitchen with a foul stench. Fumaleo staggered back, clutching her chest, still shouting, blood of Jesus. The bat shrieked once more and crashed through the kitchen window, disappearing into the sky. Fumaleo dropped to her knees, her heart pounding. She grabbed the pot with trembling hands, carried it outside, and poured its contents and the pot away. Then, without delay, she picked up her phone and dialed her mother. Mama, her voice cracked. What I saw today, the maid, she wasn't human. I caught her pouring blood from her into our food and she transformed into a bat. Her mother's tone was steady, but heavy with warning. My daughter, thank God you yielded to my advice. I told you, never let go of your prayer life. If you had ignored, your home would have been destroyed. You see now why prayer is a shield. Tears rolled down Fumaleo's cheeks. Mama, you saved us. No, her mother corrected gently. It is God that saved you. Keep praying, because the enemy never rests. That night, the Oladil family gathered in the living room. Tan held their children close as Fumaleo led prayers until their voices grew hoarse, their hearts burning with gratitude and vigilance. By the next morning, Ngozi was already knocking at another family's door. The tired mother, desperate for help, welcomed her in with relief. Ngozi stepped inside, her cold smile hidden beneath her scarf. Another home had opened its doors. Another family was about to fall. And so, the evil pattern continued.